Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Legal Conversation. This is episode 16 of the podcast. In the last episode, we discussed the NDLEA Act, both the 2003 Establishment Act and the 2007 Amendment Act. And we rounded up the same act in the same podcast. And welcome, this is episode 16, and in this episode we'll be discussing the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act, NDLEA Act. National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act. National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act. We'll simply be discussing the establishment, functions, and special powers of the Act, special powers of the agency. Okay. The functions of the agency, the special powers of the agency, function section 3, special powers section 4, powers of the Attorney General to give directive to the agency section 10, and then offences under the Act. We'll briefly run through those. Okay, that's all, and then maybe sometimes we can look at the forfeiture of assets under the Act too. Now, NDLEA Act, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act, is an act to establish the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency to enforce laws against cultivation, processing, sale, trafficking, and use of hard drugs, and to empower the agency to investigate persons suspected to have dealings in drugs and other related matters. Okay, so it's an act to establish an agency known as the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. I'm just reading. Okay, what is the primary duty or responsibility of this agency? To enforce laws against cultivation, processing, sale, trafficking, and use of hard drugs, and to empower the agency to investigate persons suspected to have dealings in drugs and other related matters. Okay, so Section 1, Establishment of the NDLEA, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Section 1 establishes the NDLEA. Now let's go to Section 3, Functions of the agency. The agency has powers, amongst others, to enforce the due administration of the provisions of the NDLEA Act. Okay, now let's break them down one by one. It has the powers to coordinate all drug laws and enforce functions conferred on it or any person or authority, okay, in respect with drug administration. It has the function of adopting measures to identify, trace, freeze, confiscate, and seize proceeds derived from drug-related offences. Okay, it can identify, it can adopt measures to identify, trace, freeze, confiscate, or seize proceeds. Proceeds are profits, okay, derived from drug-related offenses. Okay, it can adopt measure to eradicate illicit or unlawful cultivation of narcotic plants, eliminate illicit demands for narcotic drugs or psychotropic substances, with a view to reducing human suffering and eliminating financial incentives for illicit trafficking of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Okay, so it can adopt measure to eradicate the unlawful cultivation. Some people cultivate some of these plants, Indian hemp, heroin. Some people, it's what people do. People cultivate Indian hemp. So part of the functions of the NDLEA is to adopt measure to eradicate their unlawful cultivation of narcotic plants and to eliminate illicit demand for narcotic drugs. Another function is to take such measures which might require the taking of reasonable precaution to prevent the use of ordinary means of transport for illicit traffic in narcotic drugs. Okay, so some people, the drug industry is another industry on its own that has its own supply chain. So people play at different levels of the industry. There are those who cultivate, who plant. There are those who manufacture, who produce, who process. There are those who transport. There are those who wholesale. There are those who retail. Okay, so another function of the NDLEA is to take necessary measure by taking reasonable precautions, okay, to prevent the use of ordinary means of transport for the unlawful trafficking of narcotic drugs, okay. Another function is to adopt measure which include coordinated preventive and repressive action for the introduction and maintenance of investigative and control techniques. Good, okay. To adopt measures to increase the effectiveness of their eradication efforts, okay. To facilitate rapid exchange of scientific and technical information and conduct research geared towards eradicating the use of unlawful drugs, narcotic and psychotropic substances. To take measures for the early destruction or disposal of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances which have been seized, confiscated or forfeited. That is, drugs that has been seized, they quickly destroy them. Okay. Facilitate encouragement of the presence or availability of persons, including those in custody, who consent to assist in investigation, blah blah blah. To establish, maintain secure communication to facilitate the rapid exchange of information concerning offences and improving international cooperation in the suppression of illicit drug trade. Okay, like I said, the drug industry is another industry too, so they should cooperate. Some people do it locally, some people do it internationally. Okay, there are local drug syndicates and international drug syndicates. So part of the functions of the NDLEA is to coordinate both local and international resources to bust drug networks, to take such measures that may ensure the elimination and prevention of root causes of problems of narcotic and psychotropic drugs. Okay, to collaborate with government bodies, agencies within and outside Nigeria carrying out the functions, to identify the whereabouts, activities of persons suspected of being involved in offences under the Act, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's just talk about the special powers of the agency. Of course, the functions of the agency are much more than that, but just to run through. Special powers of the agency. The agency has power to cause investigations to be conducted as to whether a person has committed an offense under the Act. Okay, the agency has the power to launch an investigation against anybody where it suspects that maybe the person is into drug trafficking, drug cultivation, processing, or maybe the person has been a beneficiary of a proceed of drug-related offenses whatsoever. Okay, so the agency can launch an investigation into such a person. Now, another special power is the agency has special power with a view to ascertain whether any person has been involved in offences under the Act or in the proceed of such offences, to cause investigation to be conducted into the properties of any person if it appears to the agency that the person's lifestyle and extent of the properties are not justified by his ostensible source of income. Now, where it appears to the agency, that is the NDLEA, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, that the source of income, the annual income of a person does not justify the properties or the lifestyle of a person, they can launch an investigation into the person. Look, how much do you earn in a year? 100 million. Then this property that you have is worth several billions. How did you come about it? Okay, in a view to ascertaining, it's not necessarily that the person is involved. It's just in a view to ascertaining whether a person has been involved. Okay, that's part of the special powers. Okay, now for the purpose of conducting investigation into ascertaining whether an offense has been committed or not, the agency may, by notice in writing, call upon any person to furnish to it, within a time specified in the notice, such information such as returns, accounts, books, and other documents, financial statements inclusive, in custody, or such person as the agency may fit proper within the circumstances. Now, where in a view to ascertain whether a person has been involved in a drug-related offense, the agency may call on any person, look, young man, give us, how much do you make in a year? Give us your statement of accounts, your balance sheet. Let's go through your books. Let's see if your source of income justify your lifestyle. That's what section 4 subsection 2 is simply all about. Now, in the exercise of these powers to cause to investigate or to launch investigation with a view to ascertain whether a person has been involved in any crime under the Act. The agency shall not exercise the power without first obtaining the approval of the AG. Okay, so the agency has to obtain the approval of the AG to conduct such investigation to be launched. We will talk about the powers of the AG too under section 10 when we get there. Okay. For the now section 4 subsection 4. For the purpose of carrying out or enforcing the provisions of this act, all officers under the agency involved in the enforcement of the provisions of this act shall have the same power, authority, privileges, blah blah blah. Those are just the power section. Now, and then section 5. Now, the agency may, subsection 5. We are talking about special powers, section 4, subsection 5 now. The agency may, at its discretion, pay reward to any person, not being a person employed by the agency, in respect of any information or service rendered to the agency, which may be of assistance to the agency in the performance of its duties. So, this is just like reward for tip-offs. Okay, so where a person who is not a member or part of the agency, renders useful information that's that is of assistance to the agency in the performance of its duty. This section is saying they may be rewarded. Okay, they may be rewarded. That's just a provision for reward. Just like the whistleblowing policy, it's a provision for reward. Okay, so let's quickly go to section 10, which talks about the powers of the attorney. The powers of the Attorney General of the Federation to give directive to the agency. Yes. Powers of the AG, the Attorney General of the Federation, to give directive to the agency, that is to the NDLEA. Now, the Attorney General of the Federation may from time to time give general policy guidelines to the agency. Okay, so the AG may give policy guidelines or whether operating procedures or whatsoever to the agency. That's 10 subsection 1. 10.2. Without prejudice to the generality of the provisions of section 1, the AG Fed may give to the agency directives of a general nature or specific directives relating generally to a particular matter or case, as the case may be. The first one is general policy guidelines. This one is directive as regarding any particular case, any particular matter. Okay? And it shall be the duty of the agency to comply with the policy directives or any directive given by the Attorney General of the Federation. Simple. Okay, so the AG, remember we said, and they can, with a view to ascertaining whether a person has committed or has been involved in an offense or a crime under the Act, the NDLEA may, by a notice in writing, invite any person to furnish them with their books of accounts, statements of accounts, financial statements, and so on. All right, but this must be with the approval of the Attorney General. Remember that. Special powers under section 4. Now, section 10 is giving the Attorney General powers on his own, okay, to give directives, both general policy directives or guidelines or directive as regards the matter to the NDLEA, and it is the duty of the agency to comply with the directive, whether of policy guideline or about as regards the particular matter given by the Attorney General. Okay, take note. Now let's go to part 2, offenses that may be committed under the Act, offenses that are recognized under the Act. Section 11 to section, I think, 33 or so. Offenses which the Act establishes. Section 11. The first one is importation of cocaine, heroin, or similar drugs. Importation of cocaine, heroin, or similar drugs. Section 11 provides any person who, without lawful authority, imports, manufactures, produces, processes, plants, or grows the drugs popularly known as cocaine, LSD, heroin, or any other similar drug shall be guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to be sentenced to life imprisonment. So if a man imports, manufactures, produces, processes, plants, or grows the drugs, cocaine, LSD, heroin, or any other similar drugs, life imprisonment. That's 11A. 11B. Any person who, without lawful authority, exports, transports, or otherwise traffic in the drugs popularly known as cocaine, LSD, heroin, or any other similar drug is guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to be sentenced to life imprisonment. The first one is import, manufactures, produces, process, plants, grows. The second one is export, transport, and otherwise deal or traffic in drugs. So if both the importer and the exporter life imprisonment, the manufacturer, the producer, the processor, the one that cultivates or plants, life imprisonment. Okay, now see, any person who sells, buys, exposes, or offer for sale or otherwise deal in or with the drug popularly known as cocaine, LSD, heroin is the same thing, life imprisonment. So the importer, the exporter, the manufacturer, the producer, the processor, the plants, the ones who plant, sorry, the cultivator, the ones who grow the whatsoever, cocaine, LSD, heroin, the one who sells and buys, the one who markets. All of them are in the same category, life imprisonment. That's what the act, prescribe for them upon conviction. Okay, so let's go to the last one of 11D. Any person who, without lawful authority, knowingly possesses or uses the drugs, cocaine, LSD, heroin, or any similar drugs by smoking, inhaling, or injecting the said drugs is guilty and liable upon conviction to a time minimum of 15 years and maximum of 25 years. Okay, so those who use the drug knowingly by inhaling or injecting them or smoking them, okay, shall be guilty of an offense and liable upon conviction to a minimum of 15 years, and maximum of 25 years. This one is not life imprisonment. The exporter and importer, manufacturer, processor, planter, that is producer, cultivator, transporter, the buyer, the seller, all those ones, they are life imprisonment where they are found guilty and convicted. Life imprisonment, that's what the act prescribe. But the ones who knowingly use them, who inhale, who smoke, who inject them, minimum of 15 years and maximum of 25 years imprisonment. Okay, that's the first offense, importation of cocaine, heroin, or similar drugs. Section 11, that's the first offense, and those are the penalties for the offense. Now, section 12, occupier, unlawfully permitting use of premises. Now, some people, some premises owner or property owner permit their premises to be used for this illicit drug trade, illicit drug trafficking. Okay, so this is the section that addresses them. Occupier, unlawfully permitting use of premises. Section 12 of the NDLEA Act. Any person who being the occupier or is concerned with the management of any premises unlawfully permits or causes the premises to be used for the purpose of storing, concealing, processing, or dealing in drugs, popularly known as cocaine, LSD, heroin, or any other similar drug, shall be guilty of an offense under this act and liable on conviction to be sentenced to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 25 years. So there's no minimum for the term given to an occupier who allows his premises to be used for such illicit trade, but the maximum is 25 years. So it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5.5, it could be 8.5, it could be 22.5, but the maximum is 25 years. There's no limit, but there's a prescribed maximum, a term not exceeding 25 years. Take note. Now, let me bring this to your notice. The scope of these drugs has been expanded from time to time. Like we said, the Attorney General has the power to issue policy guidelines and directives. From time to time, these things are being reviewed, these things are being reviewed. I think there's a drug now, is it pentomycin? I can't remember, which was recently banned. Pentomycin, I can't remember now, sorry. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, the point I'm trying to drive home is that from time to time, some of these drugs are being reviewed. The scope which these laws cover are being expanded by the policy guidelines or directive issued by the AG from time to time. So that is what we should pay attention to. That is why some of these acts has to be read in conjunction with the policy guidelines. Like we always say on this show, on the podcast, this podcast does not constitute legal advice, neither does it create a client-attorney relationship between the producers, the authors, and the listeners. Okay, so it is advisable to consult or engage the service of a lawyer for tailored professional legal advice for your needs. Thank you. So that is that about an occupier that unlawfully permits the use of his premises for such illicit trade. Maximum of 25 years imprisonment. Now, conspiracy. Conspiracy is another section 14. Conspiracy is another offense. Any person who incites, promises, or induces any other person by any means whatsoever to commit any of the offenses under the Act, drug offenses. B. Conspires with, aids, abets, cancels, attempt to commit, or is an accessory to any act under the Act. Now, some people help drug traffickers. Some people assist them, they hate them, they abet, they help them achieve maybe traffic one way or the other. Such person is guilty and upon convictions liable for an imprisonment of not less than 15 years and not more than 25 years. So anyone who conspires, who assists, who incites, who promises, who induce, they are guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to an imprisonment for a time not less than 15 years and not more than 25 years. Minimum of 15, maximum of 25 years. Okay, there's also the offense of unlawful assumption of character of officer of the agency. This is just like impersonating a NDLEA officer. Section 15. Any person who with intent to deceive unlawfully assumes the name, character, or designation of an officer of the agency shall be guilty of an offense under the Act and liable a conviction to a term not exceeding 10 years. So there's no minimum, but the maximum is 10 years, not exceeding 10 years. So anybody who with the intent to deceive unlawfully assumes the name, character, or designation of an officer of the agency shall be guilty of an offense under this Act and liable on conviction to be sentenced to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years. So, importation of drugs, those who import, who cultivate, who process, who manufacture, those who export, those who buy and sell, those ones life imprisonment. Remember, section 11, I'm just doing a brief recap. Now, the ones who knowingly use, who inhale, who, inject, who smoke, minimum of 50, maximum of 25. Just a recap of section 11. Okay, section 12, offenses. Occupier, those who permit their premises to be used for illicit drug. There's no minimum but maximum of 25 years. Okay, and then there's conspiracy, those who conspire, minimum of 15, a maximum of 25 years. And then there's unlawful assumption of the character, impersonating a NDLEA officer, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency officer. There's no minimum, maximum of 10 years. Okay, so we've come to the end of this podcast. In the next podcast, we'll continue on offenses. We'll continue our discussion on offenses committable under the Act. There are some offenses, there are a lot of them. Tampering with drugs. Some people tamper with drugs, they adulterate drugs. Okay, we'll continue in the next episode. Thank you very much for staying tuned. See you in the next episode. Thank you.